Why did I decide to film a summer book recommendation video on like the gloomiest, darkest day ever? No idea. Hello everyone, it is April and I am here today to celebrate summer with you. We are into June. To me, this is summertime. We're there. We are in it. And so I have 20 books that I think are perfect for summer that I highly recommend to you. Let's dive in because otherwise it's going to be a really long one. The first book I want to recommend is A Ton of French and it's one of my favorite books of all time. This is The Witch Elm by Tana French, and it is a standalone. And The Witch Elm follows a man who is brutally beaten after a night out with the guys, and he ends up going to stay at Uncle Toby's house, who is battling cancer, and he decides to go and help his Uncle Toby and also try to heal himself. Now, while he's living there, it is discovered that there is a skull in the backyard of Uncle Toby's tree. Like there's a big, huge elm tree at the back of the house. There's a skull in there, and it is discovered while he's living there. The reason I think this is a perfect summer book is that it harkens back to the past a lot, where him and his cousins spent the summers at Uncle Toby's house, and it's just nostalgic in that way. And the house to me is synonymous with those summers, so I'd highly recommend that. And who doesn't like a good mystery in the summer anyway? Ooh, a storm is coming in. Can you hear that? Did you hear the thunder? Oh, that's perfect for this next book, which is my favorite horror book of all time, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. This is, as I said before, a horror book, but it's set in the South and it's got all of those Southern vibes. We meet a woman named Patricia along with her whole book club. They tend to read a lot of true crime, and there is a man that moves into the neighborhood that she suspects might be a vampire, and he infiltrates his way into their little gang here. And I loved this book so much. It is wonderful. Am I gonna have to turn on a light? I might have to turn on a light. I don't know if that helped at all. Hi, can you turn on that light?
Yeah, it's getting dark. There's a really bad storm coming in.
Yeah. Barry turned on the overhead light for me. Sorry if the vibe is different now, but I think it was getting like fuzzy because it's so dark. Ooh, I love a good summer storm. The next book is The Lost Man by Jane Harper. Now, this was the first Jane Harper, I think the only Jane Harper I've ever read. And The Lost Man follows brothers who are trying to figure out what happened to their brother, who was found dead in the desert in Australia. He had walked away from his car, even though his car had water and he could have shelter there. He walked away and died. And they're trying to figure out what happened and why. The reason that I think this is a perfect summer book is because of that heat, just the suffocating heat that is this book. I thought it was really well written as well. So The Lost Man is a good one. Next up, we've got another Tana French. You didn't think I'd be done with her, did you? This is In the Woods. It's the first book in the Dublin Murder Squad series. You don't have to read this series in order, but I highly recommend it because there are lots of mentions of the past in the subsequent books. So in any case, in this book, we're following a man on the Dublin Murder Squad. Now, he has some very darkness in his history. As a child, he was found in the woods. The lone survivor, he is found covered in a lot of blood. I think his nails are like shredded off. And his friends, who he's been childhood friends with for many, many years, disappeared and never to be found again. And we follow him then, and then also as an adult, he is now, joined the Dublin Murder Squad. He's following the murder of a girl in those same woods where his friends went missing. And I think it's the perfect summer book because there are those hearkening back to the past hearkening back to those summers. And the opening scene of this book is so, it's just got such incredible writing about summer and the nostalgia of summer as a child and how you experience summer as a child, which is different than how you experience it as an adult, sadly. But I just loved it and definitely gave me summer vibes. Before We Were Yours is next. Now, this is not, I feel like most of the things that I've suggested to you so far are like mystery based. Before We Were Yours follows a group of siblings living in the South in the 30s. Their parents leave for the night because their mother is in labor. And so they leave for the night. In that time period, a person comes to the door and essentially kidnaps them. And this actually did happen in the 30s in the South. A woman runs an orphanage where she tells very well-to-do people who want a child that these children are orphaned and need your help, when in fact she has kidnapped a series of poverty-stricken children and basically put them up for adoption. She's kidnapped them though, and we follow this group of siblings in this setting. I really enjoyed this book. I haven't enjoyed other books by this author, but this one definitely was good. And because it's in the South, it gives me those summer vibes again. My Sister the Serial Killer is next. This is about a woman who has a sister who is a serial killer. Now this woman is very upstanding citizen. I think she's a nurse. She does really great work, but she's got this sister who ends up in relationships, and time again, her sister calls her up and says, you know, he hit me or he was about to hurt me, and so I had to kill him. And so she goes to her sister's aid time and time again, helping to dispose of these bodies. Now, her sister has recently caught her eye on a doctor that she works with, that she actually has a crush on. And it is about the dynamics of her trying to save this man from her own sister. So good. I really enjoyed this. This is very, very dark humor, but there are scenes in here that are really hot. This takes place in Nigeria, and there's a scene where she and her sister are meeting with a woman whose brother has gone missing, and the sister is eating an ice cream cone and couldn't care less that she's killed this man, and there's like ice cream like dripping down her arm, and it's just, you can feel the heat. And I just loved this book. I thought it was a lot of fun. The Night Visitor is next, and The Night Visitor follows a woman who is at the launch of her book. She has written a biography about a pioneering female surgeon, and she is so stressed out because the entire time that she's there, she thinks that one person in particular is going to show up at this book launch and ruin everything. And that woman's name is Vivian Tester. She has worked with Vivian Tester through all of the research of this book. She got all of the information from Vivian. She should really be giving Vivian credit, but she's kind of screwed Vivian over because Vivian is weird. One of my favorite characters of all time is Vivian. And I think because there is a lot of discussion about bugs, like the scientific aspect of bugs, there's something about it that just feels summery to me. So I would recommend The Night Visitor to you. Stillhouse Lake is next by Rachel Kane. Now this is a series. I've only read the first in the series. I might continue the series, but yeah, so far I've only read the first. And Stillhouse Lake is a thriller about a woman who is driving home, and someone has crashed into their garage. And she's like, oh, this is terrible. What happened? And there's like tons of police cars there. And she's like, this seems a little bit overkill for just a minor crash. She gets there and realizes that her husband has been storing dead bodies and has been killing women in that garage for many years. And he is actually a serial killer. So we follow her discovering this and trying to protect her children from this man and from this new horror of their lives. And she decides to change her name, change her children's name, and just up and move to Stillhouse Lake. She doesn't want anyone to know where she is because a lot of people think that she is to blame and knew something about her husband. In any case, she starts to, she has moved to Stillhouse Lake, and while there, bodies start being found in the lake, and they have been killed and disposed of the same way that her husband killed and disposed of his victims. So what is going on? Such a fun book. Oh, this is another book that like just screams heat. This is The Trouble with Goats and Sheep by Joanna Cannon. I've recommended this so many times. Like I only want people to read this in the summer. This takes place in 1976, and we follow two little girls named Grace and Tilly, and a woman on their street has gone missing, and they have decided to spend their summer trying to find out what happened to her. And so they go door to door to all of their neighbors' houses to interview them and try to get information from them. Of course, they're totally amateurs. They don't know what's going on. And while they go door to door, people do talk to them, but they don't understand some of the things that are being said because they're just children, but you as the reader understands. So it's about these neighbors and secrets of the past. There was I think it is like 20 years ago or something, that something terrible happened on the street, and explores that mystery as well. So you're diving into many mysteries over the course of a summer, and you will fall in love with Grace and Tilly. You can be sure of that. I'll Be Gone in the Dark is next. There's something about this book. It does take place in California, so maybe that's it, but this book follows the Golden State Killer and his terrible crimes. It's written by Michelle McNamara, who sadly died before this was published and before that he was caught. But she spent much of her life trying to hunt this man down. He would break into women's homes, couples' homes as well, and rape the women, and sometimes kill the women, sometimes kill the couples. And it's about how he did all of that, and also about the victims. It's very, very respectful to the victims, which I enjoyed. There's also a series on this entitled I'll Be Gone in the Dark on HBO that I thought was incredible as well. But yeah, this book actually did scare me. If You Live Alone, I don't know if I would read this. It was scary. I'll just say that. It was scary. Oh, The Cabin at the End of the World. I love this book so much. This follows a gay couple who have this lovely little daughter, and they have rented or gone to a cabin for a week or two in the summer. Oh my gosh, you can hear that thunder, can't you? Yes, I love this stuff. Okay, so this follows this family, and they receive some visitors that are very much unwanted. These people are coming up the lane wielding these strange weapons that they've like constructed themselves, and they're like, we're not going to hurt you, we just need your help to save the world. And it is about home invasion and about these kind of crazy people. I was horrified reading this and nervous reading this. I really, really liked it. And because it's at a cabin, so summery, right? Oh my goodness, I love this one. Tangerine. I have spoken about this so many times. This is about a woman who leaves her home to go to Tangier with her husband. She's newly married to him, and he's not really a nice guy, let me just say. While she's there, she doesn't really leave the house. Like, she doesn't know anybody, she doesn't explore, she just stays home. Unfortunately for her, someone from her past shows up at the door. Her old roommate shows up, and she is not happy to see her because they ended on very poor terms. It showcases the the very tense relationship between them, because she does feel like she has to, you know, welcome this woman into her home and host and all of these things. And it's very awkward and very nail biting, but also you can feel the heat, and the sand is very, very atmospheric and in a summery, wonderful way. So I'd highly recommend Tangerine for you to read this summer. The Chalk Man is next. If you liked It by Stephen King, maybe you should read The Chalk Man. It's very inspired by It, which is not on this list. That's another suggestion for you, although I feel mixed things about it. This follows Eddie and his friends in the 80s. Over the course of a summer, they have this like kind of cute little ritual where they draw chalkmen at the bottom of each other's driveways to say, this is where we're going today, like we're going to the park today, and that will be suggested via the chalkmen. Unfortunately, one day they see at the end of their driveways a figure that suggests go to the park. They go to the park and they find a dismembered body. What happened? It follows them as well as their parents. I really enjoyed it. The ending shocked me. Oh, yes. Oh my goodness. Another very atmospheric book is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I think this is the perfect summer book. This follows a woman you probably know. It follows a woman who is taking care of an elderly lady, and while she's away on this trip with this woman, she meets a man. And she meets this guy named Mr. De Winter, and he's kind of perfect. And he falls in love with her. They have this like really fast romance. He asks her to marry him, and she says yes. And they go to stay at Manderley, where he lives in this huge home, and where he also lived with his first wife, Rebecca, who has since passed away. And it really explores who Rebecca was, but through the memories of other people, the servants, even the objects around the house. And it's very summery because it just feels summery. The grounds of Manderley are so beautiful, and I just loved this book. Like, I want to reread this at some point for sure, but I want to get through a few more Daphne du Maurier's before I do that. Oh, a classic for you, And Then There Were None. This is set on an island. A group of people were invited to this island. None of them know one another, but one by one they're being killed off, and they're looking at each other like, are you the killer? And so they're trying to survive on this island, and you are trying to figure out who is the killer. And I'm telling you, you're not going to, I wasn't able to guess. Maybe you will be. I loved this book. Classic, again, still my favorite Agatha Christie that I've read. I've got two Riley Sager book suggestions for you. And the first is like probably the perfect summer read, which is The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. This follows a woman who as a child went to summer camp, and while she was at summer camp, her friends, and like there were older girls, but they were her roommates essentially, they all snuck out one evening and disappeared, and she has no idea what happened to them, and it's been a mystery. Since then, she's obviously grown up, she's become an artist, and these girls have really stayed in her mind all of these years, and so they appear time and time again in her artwork. The camp was obviously shut down after these girls went missing, but this year the camp is going to be reopened, and I think it's like an old camp counselor or someone who was reopening it, and she invites our main character back to teach art. And she goes back kind of to teach art, but mostly to find out what happened to the girls. I really enjoyed that one. Next is another Riley Sager, and the first that I read made me fall in love with him, and this is Final Girls. This is about final girls who are people who survive massacres. So in this, we're following Quincy, and she's on a vacation with her friends, I think at a cabin, and she's the only survivor. So there's lots of flashbacks to that. Now, she doesn't remember her past. She doesn't remember what happened at that time. She only knows that she's the only survivor. Since then, she has found some friends who have also been final girls, and they kind of lean on each other through it. Because there's a lot of media coverage and all of that strange, memories and stuff, and they lean on each other, even though they're very different people. In the meantime, these final girls are also being killed, and you follow Quincy trying to sort through it all and also trying to remember what happened. And it's those flashbacks that feels very summery to me. And there's something about horror in the summer that I just think is summery. I don't know. I think I'm weird on that though. I'm probably alone. Okay, The Girls is next by Emma Cline. This is one of those like visceral, you can feel the heat kind of books. It is also a cult book. The Girls follows a woman who is remembering her past in, I think, the 60s in Northern California. She sees a group of girls walk by when she's a teenager. She falls kind of in love with them. She's enamored by them, and she tries to kind of infiltrate the group. And she learns that they're kind of a cult. Like, I think this is basically based on the family, Manson and his family. And it follows her then and now as she remembers her past. And that past is so kind of gross. They like live together on communes, and like they don't clean themselves very well. They're very sweaty, and there's lots of scenes in here of them chopping fruit, and the fruit is getting everywhere, and it's hot and sticky, and just such a perfect summer book. Oh, I had to include a Kate Morton on this list. This is The Lake House. This follows Sadie Sparrow, who is a police detective who learns of a mystery from the past. In the summer of 1933, this family has this lavish party at their home, fairly sprawling big home, and their 11-month-old son, Theo, goes missing, and he's never found again. The family like shut down the house, they move away and try to move on with their lives. The parents, and then as well as their daughters, Deborah, Alice, and Clementine. So Sadie, this young police detective, finds out about this mystery and reaches out to Alice to try and dig some of her memories of the past. And it follows both of them going through those memories. And I really enjoyed this. This was my first Kate Morton that I read, and I loved it. Last but not least is one of my favorite historical fiction books of all time, and this is The Light Between Oceans. This takes place on an island. We meet a couple who are essentially lighthouse keepers, and they have been struggling for years to try to conceive. They've had miscarriage after miscarriage. One day, a boat comes ashore with a dead man and a living and breathing baby in this boat. They take the baby as their own, and say that it's their own to like their family, their friends back home on mainland, and there are consequences for that decision. And I just loved this book so much. It made me cry. It made me feel known about infertility as well, and I just adored it. So it takes place in Australia, I should say that. I loved it, and I hope you will too. See, I told you it was going to be a long one. I couldn't help but talk about them all. Like, it's such a long video, but I hope that you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments below. Is there a summary book that you would recommend to me that I didn't mention here? Because I'm sure there are many. I'd love to hear your recommendations, and I'm sure many other people would love your recommendations too. So leave that in the comments below. Hope you guys are well. Hope you have a wonderful summer, and I'll talk with you very soon. Bye.